Cool. All right. We are live. Last time I did this, well, the very first time I did it, I didn't know that we went because there's a bit of a lag, and so we went live. And then I know all of us were just like sitting there, like looking around. Oh. The things you learn. Anyway,
that's funny.
Welcome to my little interview channel. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting. It's fun.
No worries. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got into cheerleading and sort of why you started and how long you've been doing it and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I started in gymnastics, but like I was never that serious in gymnastics. I just didn't like it. I was the type of kid that like didn't like being the spotlight. So like I didn't like doing the routines by myself. So I think it was like, for some reason, I always knew I wanted to do cheerleading. I can't remember why. I don't know what like triggered that, because we didn't even really have like cheerleading was like so tiny back then. And I don't know where I got the whole thing of like, yeah, I want to do cheerleading. But anyways, I was sort of looking into it, and my mum would be like, "Oh, Tess, we don't have cheerleading in Australia, you know, like it's in America." But I was determined. So I ended up finding just like a little local club in Mornington. And I started there when I was about 9 years old. Like I just searched for it. And I just, for some reason, knew I wanted to do it. And right from when I started, I fell in love with it. And that was sort of the end of it. Like I just kept doing it. From there, I ended up moving to Outlaws, obviously, a couple years later. I think I was like 2 years at my little local gym, and then they only went to level 2 at the time. So I had sort of outgrown that and was ready to move on to the higher levels. So I moved out to Outlaws. Funnily enough, Outlaws, our Mornington Somerville location is actually now, that was where I initially started. So I don't know, it's kind of a cool little cycle, little circle. I sort of ended up where I started. But yeah, so I moved out to there, and I started when I was 9 and I'm now 22. So I just went through there. I haven't been competing for 2 years now. Mm-hmm. I think it's 2 years, 2 or 3 years. I finished up in Worlds 2019. Yeah, that was my last competition. So I've done a few little comps here and there of just like filling in for a team if there's an injury or something. My sister still cheers. So yeah, but I just fell in love with it right from the start. And then the rest was history. Like it's all kind of a blur. Like I feel like it just happened. But yeah, it was something over 10 years or something that I was competing for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how long had cheerleading been around when you started? Like it must have only been pretty, like a couple of years old.
Yeah, it was tiny. Like we were doing like the World Cup competitions. Oh gosh, I don't know how long it had been around for, but yeah, I remember going to nationals, and it was like a 1-day event that like didn't even take up the whole day.
Yeah.
It might not have even been nationals. I don't even know what the comp was, but like the ASCF comps we would do were like, didn't even take up a day. So it was little.
I think I started in 2009, and we used to have the like best pirouettes and
yes.
all the individual
stumps and stuff like that.
Yeah. To try and like cut out the day.
I would always like go and enter the jump competition, and that was like the only one I would enter. Yeah. And it was just like my favorite thing of the day. Yeah, so I think I started in like 2008, so pretty much the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you started, are you like a very ambitious person? Did you think, yes, I'm going to make it to the top one day, or were you just kind of having fun?
Nah, I feel like I've always been really competitive. Yeah, like I feel like gymnastics I wasn't, because I just didn't enjoy it as much. But yeah, as soon as I remember from the get-go when I started cheerleading, I was like that cheerleading freak that would know every single team, or every single like cheer music, and 24/7 cheer. I would be watching it all the time. And I just knew like the ins and outs of everything. And I think, yeah, right from the get-go, I knew that I wanted to be at the top, and I wanted to compete in America and all of that stuff. Yeah, right from the start.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so how did Top Gun come about? Like, why did you go over there? Was it timing,
Yeah. I actually, the first ever time I cheered in America was 2014 when I went to NCA. And that was just like a full game changer. It's just a whole different world over there. Like, it's so different. And we trained at cheer athletics. So I was on Outlaws Sheriffs. We were in the senior 3 all-girl category. And yeah, so we trained at cheer athletics. And right from then, I just knew that I wanted to cheer in America. And that was going to be my goal. My goal was actually to go there in 2016. But we ended up placing second at NCA 2014, 2015. So I was like, no, I need to go back to NCA in 2016, which I'm glad I did, because we ended up taking out the win. But yeah, I always as well, like after training at cheer athletics, I loved it, but Top Gun was always like my favorite. I don't know, just their routines. TGLC, I would just watch all the time and just be in awe, like jaw dropped of their choreography and their like visual elements in their routines and their dances. So I ended up, like right from the start, I knew that was the place I wanted to be. But I did actually try out for like multiple gyms. So I tried out for cheer athletics. I tried out for World Cup. I tried out for, oh gosh, I can't even remember the other ones now. But because I wasn't sure where I was going to be able to go and where I was going to be able to live. And I went through an au pairing program. So I was like a nanny in the States, and that's how I effectively got my visa to be able to compete. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to find a family in Miami to go to Miami. Luckily I did, and it just turns out that I did end up being able to go to Top Gun. But yeah, I did try out for like multiple gyms just to be sure that I could, have the best chance of making it happen. Yeah.
So how long were you in America for cheering with them?
Just a year. So just for the one season. I was maybe going to stay for a second season, but I just missed home too much and I wanted to come home. So I did. I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise though, because then that next year was sort of when all the COVID started coming in and everything. So I probably would have been stuck there for maybe even 3 or 4 years. So I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise that I came home.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I've been looking at your Instagram, and I saw that you were on Trophies TV.
Yeah. Yeah. So, oh gosh, I came across that like last minute, like pretty much the day before the, I guess, like due date for the auditions. I saw it and I was like, oh, heck yeah, that sounds so much fun. So I so quickly did an audition, applied for it and whatever. And I honestly thought nothing was going to come from it. I was like, oh, I won't hear anything back at all. But no, turns out they did really like it and wanted to have me over there, have me come over to LA to film with them. And that was an incredible experience. And we got to meet so many awesome people. I got to actually hang out with a few of my friends from Top Gun as well, which was really cool. I hadn't met them before because they had moved home by the time I was at Top Gun, but it was just fun because we had the same experience and had all the same friends and everything. So I actually ended up staying with them there.
Tell me about the show, like what's the format? How does it work?
It was hectic. It was like, I think I was there for a week. And we were pretty much training for like 8 hours a day. And then the last 2 days we spent filming. So because this was like a team of girls that have never met each other before, we pretty much just, spent like the first 3 days like training all day, every day. It was so exhausting. Getting like this 2-minute routine together, figuring out some stunt groups that could maybe come together and do, a few elite skills that would potentially work for filming. And then, the last 2 days we spent pretty much, I think they were like ended up being 12-hour days or something just filming. And then we went home. It was a really short trip, but it was an incredible experience. I don't think anything's really come from it now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that was just in relation to COVID, because I know it came out pretty much right before that happened. But the experience just overall was awesome. And it's really cool to see like the behind the scenes of a filming, like of a film crew and stuff like that. The amount of times we would film that same like 5 seconds, like we'd film it 50 times.
So was it a scripted show, or was it like a documentary? Right. Okay.
Scripted. Yeah. Right. So the whole idea behind it was going to be like, it was going to be like a documentary, but a scripted one. So it wasn't real. But like they were following around this team that was competing at, I think, nationals or worlds or something. I can't remember.
Right.
Yeah, but it was all scripted. So we had a few of the girls that were actors, and then I was just one of the like support athletes. So I was just a part of the team. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. Really cool.
And so, and that was only a couple of weeks, was it?
Yeah, I only ended up being there for like 7 days.
Oh, right. Okay. And so that was fine to sort of just take some time training off from Top Gun?
Well, no, this was after I had been to Top Gun.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually came home from Top Gun in May, so just after Worlds. And then I flew back to LA in August to film for trophies.
Oh, right. So you weren't still in America. Right. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So I wasn't even competing here or anything. Yeah. So it was like 2 months later, I just flew back for the week.
And was that, so have you sort of retired since then? Was that what was your decision to retire then?
I just sort of had these goals that I wanted to tick off. And once I ticked them all off, I was sort of at the point where I was ready to move on. And I felt like there wasn't really many other goals that I wanted to achieve in cheerleading. You know, like I had the goal of winning NCA, competing at Worlds, and placing top 5 at Worlds, and competing with an American team at Worlds. And once I'd sort of done all that, I felt like, I was just ready to move on. So, that was just it. I just knew that it was time for me to focus on the coaching a bit more and do some other things, learn some other sports. And I got really into like rock climbing and back into gymnastics a bit more, and Ninja Warrior and stuff like that, and just took a step back from cheer a bit and gave my body a break too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so tell me, what do you think the biggest difference between Australian cheer and American cheer is?
Expectations. Massive. And I think the only reason why that is, or one of the big ones, is because they have a lot more people in America, obviously. So, you know, if you're on the team and you're not pulling your weight, it's literally just, all right, you're not doing what we need you to do, you're off the team. So they can have those high expectations, but I feel like because of that, everyone just works so much harder. So I feel that's why their routines are the way they are, because people know that they need to be the best to stay on the team they want to be on. I wasn't guaranteed that I was even going to be on Sci-5 until our first competition. Like, you know, like we didn't know who was competing at our first comp until like a month prior. So until then, your spot's never safe.
Yeah. And so how does training work in that way? Like, because are you training with one group and then that group will be decided whether you're on the comp floor or not? Or is it just like you've got a month to work with a new group because you've been put in the routine?
Pretty much.
Yeah, right. So you kind of have to work with everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I guess that's another thing as well. Like, say if you get put in a stunt group, you could be moved the next week and you just have to make it work. And everyone knows that, and people will, you know, be able to just adapt really quick. Most of the time, like, you will have a pretty solid set stunt group, but if your stunt group's struggling and not really working, they'll just be like, all right, I'm going to get this person to jump in your spot and they're going to be the new main base, and we'll see if that works. And if it works, it's probably like, all right, you're an understudy now, which sucks but I guess it's just the way it is. And I don't know if it's like that everywhere or whatever. And it definitely, like, it was never a brutal thing or anything. They're so good about it, and everything's always, you know, understanding, and they just care for their athletes and stuff like that. But it's just like, if you're not reaching the standards of that level, if you're not excelling in that level, we're going to have to find a better place for you somewhere else where you are going to excel, sort of thing, until you're ready. But yeah, so I know even before UCA, so we had just finished NCA, and then we had just competed at UCA. After UCA, we pretty much, I remember we had like 5 people change. So we changed about 5 athletes on our team before Worlds and redid our whole routine, just because we had a few people that were letting us down sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, so it even came down to attendance and stuff like that too. Like, if there was people that were just a bit slack and not coming to practice, or missing too many because their priority clearly wasn't cheerleading, it would just be like, okay, well, we have this understudy here that's working really hard and comes every practice and is so, you know, determined. We're going to put them there, which I guess is just fair enough. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah. So when the very first interview that I did this year was actually with Kat and Dan and Alex. Yeah, and they're all over in America at the moment. Yeah. And one of the things that they were talking about was that, like, the biggest difference they saw was that Americans just have so much more knowledge when it comes to stunts, and we're still sort of catching up with that knowledge. Yeah. And I think we're getting much better. But yeah, is that something that, like, did you go over there and start excelling quicker because people were able to give you pointers that you didn't have back here?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I feel like I can't really speak from, like, I can only speak from like a base's point of view because I'm a base. But yeah, I feel like in the sense of everyone just knows how to work together, definitely. So I feel like everyone has their really good knowledge that when you jump in a group, it is like, it just works straight away. I know working with like Coach Victor and stuff like that, when he would come over and help us, or Coach Kirsten or anything, their minds are just insane. Like, I don't know where they get it. I don't know how their minds work the way they do. But yeah, the way they think about stunting and stuff like that, it's honestly mind-blowing. I'm like, yeah. So I definitely learned a lot of things where I was just like, damn, like, that makes it so much easier. Like, a skill that maybe I struggled with beforehand. But yeah, everyone just definitely does have that training and a bit better knowledge that when you come to it and when you get to it, everything's just like easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so you were in Kelly Girls, right?
Yeah.
Which is all girl. And then Sci-5 was co-ed, yeah?
Yeah, small co-ed.
Yeah. So what was it like? Do you prefer all girl or do you prefer the small co-ed, and why?
I mean, for me, like, as an athlete, they weren't too different because I was still in an all-girl stunt group. And yeah, like on site, we were the only all-girl stunt group. So everyone else had one of the boys and we didn't. So on that regard, I didn't really notice much difference. I probably would say that I love small co-ed a lot better though. Only because I feel like boys just bring a different energy. I don't know why. Yeah, it's just, they were so fun. And I mean, it probably helps that the boys that were on my team were like my best friends and I got along with them all really, really well. It might be different on a different team. It probably would be. But they just had this energy that was different to a whole group of girls. Yeah, so I probably would say I liked the small co-ed. I don't know how I would go on like a large co-ed though. Again, I think that would be so different. But just having the couple boys around, they're just so laid back and chill and like don't care about anything almost. Like, they care about being good, but, you know, they're just so supportive. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like girls aren't supportive, but yeah, I just found it really fun having that energy around. Yeah.
And so tell me about the process of, you said you auditioned for a few teams. Tell me about the process of getting on Top Gun.
It's kind of a long story. It took me about 2 years to actually find a way to get over to America with all their visa rules. But yeah, so I ended up going through the au pair channel, I guess, way of getting there. And I didn't find out I was going to move to America until 2 months beforehand. So I found out in about April and then moved in June. June or July, one of the other. So then I had tried out for all of those teams the previous season and made world teams. I actually made 6-6, which was like Top Gun's now level 7 back in the day. But I couldn't get a visa that year, so I couldn't get over there. But then when I found out I could move to Florida, I was like, all right, I'm just going. I didn't actually try out for Top Gun that season. I was like, I'm just going to move there and then I'll see what I can do. So when I did move there, I was living in a place called Boynton Beach, which was in peak hour, 2 to 3 hours from Top Gun.
Wow.
Which when our training times were, it was peak hour and the traffic in Miami is just like atrocious, so bad. So it would take me about 2 hours to get to the gym. But I moved there and I chatted to my family and I was like, hey, this is something I really want to do. And I actually just called Top Gun and was like, oh, do you have a place on a team? Thinking that I was like, maybe going to be able to join their open level 4 or something. Like they probably wouldn't have any spaces on a world's team. And then that's when I got told about Sci-5 and they gave me Adrian, my coach. They gave me his number and was like, give Adrian a call and he'll have a chat to you and see. And pretty much I just called him the next day and I was like, hey, do you have a spot for me? Like I want to be on a team. I'm here now. And I had spoken to him the year before as well. So he knew who I was. And he was like, well, yeah, we actually like really desperately need bases for Sci-5. So you want to come join? And I was like, great. Because I personally didn't really want to be on level 6 or 7. It's confusing because back then it was 6, but now it's 7.
Yeah, sure.
So I personally, like I wanted to be on that level. Like I wanted to be on a level 5 team. So when he said that, I was like, yeah, great. Like I'll come next week. So I just went down the week after and that was it. Yeah.
And how come you weren't interested in a level 16?
I just felt like I wouldn't do as much being in your base. I thought I would probably be like a mid person in pyramids and stuff, but stunt wise and everything, like I'm really short. So there's a lot of people there and all the boys are so much bigger than me. So I just looked and I was like, the boys are going to do it, not me. So I just, felt like I probably wouldn't do as much on a level 7 team. Whereas that level 6 team, I can be more involved. So that's really the main reason. And I just think the wow factor of level 6 routines, like they're usually a lot more fast paced and stuff like that. So I was like, I definitely want to be there.
You just felt like you could kind of shine in that level more. Yeah,
definitely.
And you're a tumbler as well, yeah, coming from gymnastics, or
not really?
Oh, really?
Not anymore. I injured my back really bad in like 2016-17, where I damaged a couple of the vertebrae in my spine really badly. So from then on, tumbling was really difficult. So especially like going to Worlds with Kelly's in 2018, I didn't tumble at all because I was still like, I guess, nursing that injury and recovering. I shouldn't really have competed, but I think that's the way it is in cheerleading.
Yeah.
So I stunted the whole time. I only did jumps to back at Kelly's for Worlds. And then at Sci, I didn't tumble at all just because of that injury, and they didn't need me to tumble either. So I just stunted.
Yeah, nice. And so tell me about how did you sort of work through that injury and rehab it?
It was hard. I'm still dealing with it today. And honestly, it's one of those injuries where I've never really been given an answer of how to help it and what to do. Cheerleading was just really bad because all of the impact, even from stunting, and just there's so much load on that lower back that to, you know, fix it or have some sort of relief was just to not do it. So in 2017, I took like 3 months off. The only competition I competed at was nationals with Kelly's. And then I went to Worlds. So I didn't compete at Winterfest, States, Battle. I didn't do any of them. Because that was the only solution, was just to stop. So I'm still working on it today. I saw a kinesiologist for a while, which they helped quite a lot, but then it's just like strengthening of the core and stuff like that. But even I started coaching again last night for the first time after lockdown, and I came home and my back was in like so much pain, like it hurt to walk. So it's definitely still something I'm dealing with and still trying to figure out who to see, where to get answers and stuff. So it's definitely been hard.
And was that something that affected your mental health, having to take time off and having an injury?
I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think so at the time, because I think I was really just at the point where my body couldn't do it. Like I needed that time. So I think for me, it was almost like a bit of a relief that I had some of that time off, because I just like, I think I would have just damaged my back way more had I have kept going. Definitely these days it's a bit harder as well, because I'm still dealing with it like 5 years later. So when I do have that bit of a spell where it gets really bad, it's a bit more like frustrating and I guess, upsetting, because I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with it. But at the time, no, it wasn't. It was obviously, it was just like any other injury that, it wasn't too bad though.
Moral of the story is look after your back so it doesn't get injured in the first place.
Oh my gosh. These days I'm like so pedantic about it. I'm like, no, you got to do core work. You can't stand like that. Like, let's fix this because you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
I guess it just shows the importance of good training as well, and good coaching too, like making sure that even as a coach, like you really understand different body positions and the importance of strength and conditioning, and making sure that you really break down each athlete and like look at each athlete individually, because me as an athlete, I've always been very flexible and stuff like that, and that definitely had a big play on it. But I never really knew that as a kid. I didn't know that that was going to cause me issues later on. So I think that's why as a coach, it's really important to have that good training and understanding.
Yeah. You mean having flexibility without enough strength to back that up is the issue. Yeah.
And like my joints have always been really, really loose, which allowed me to be really flexible, but my muscles weren't. So I would often find myself doing little tears everywhere and stuff like that. From pushing it too hard. Yeah. The body's important. Like kids need to remember that too.
Yeah. Definitely. It's something that I've always advocated, but a lot of young people, especially like 19, 20, they just think they're unbreakable. And I'm like, listen to me. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about Odyssey Sports and like how it started, and is that your full-time job?
No, so I mean that's like sort of my priority, yes, but I coach gymnastics as well. So do a bit of everything. So Odyssey was another one of those things that I just knew I wanted to do from the get-go. I sort of fell in love with Camp Woodward in America, which I'm sure a few people know about. It's basically their summer cheer camp that they do, and I loved the look of it, and I loved going to cheer camps. I know Askif did a couple cheer camps back in the day, like early on, that I always had a ball at and everything. And I was like, we just need something like that again here. Something to give that fun and provide that fun while still progressing and excelling and meeting new friends. And I loved that in America as well, how everyone was friends with everyone. And you know, my team was friends with people from twist and shout, and you know, you knew so many different cheerleaders across the country that I was like, that would just be so much fun to have in Australia as well. So that's sort of my goal behind Odyssey, is to bring that here. It's been a bit rough because obviously we've been only open for like 2 years, and those 2 years have been very on and off. So majority of our work this year has been cancelled due to lockdowns, but that's the way it is. So we're sort of just on a fresh path now, and I'm just sort of starting from the start again and getting ready for next year. But our main thing is to have those cheer camps. And then also, obviously, we offer the choreography and skills workshops and stuff like that too. And hopefully next year as well, we'll have a few of our friends from Top Gun come over to coach over here and just bring some of that energy over here and knowledge over here as well, just because I want to see the sport grow here too. And I think we need that. Like, we all need help at some point. And I think, you know, they have the tools, and they honestly, like, they have so much knowledge. So I'd love to see some of that come over here as well, and especially to help our smaller gyms grow too.
Yeah.
Have more. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason I actually got onto you was because someone messaged me and said that they had recently had you coach them, and they thought that you were an amazing athlete, and they wanted to sort of be interviewed. So and I think that you can't be a good coach without being passionate about coaching. I think it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
And where does that passion come from? Like, why do you what makes you want to pass on that knowledge to other people and up and coming people?
I've just always been that person that loves to help. Like, just, I want to give back to the sport and what I've learned, and the amount of joy and the amount of memories and life experience and everything that I got from cheerleading. I want other kids to have the same. I think it's come from gymnastics a lot. So I started coaching gymnastics when I was like 14, and my bosses, and they've been the people that have really coached me all my life as well. They're just incredible too, and they're that, you know, that same vibe of just wanting kids to really enjoy movement, enjoy sport, and understand it, and, you know, live a healthy lifestyle and everything. So I think honestly, just being around those people my whole life has really, like, I guess, just drilled it into my system, like made me realize that I want other kids to experience that too, so badly. Like, I want them to have the same experiences that I had and the same opportunities, because I know it's not easy to get those opportunities, and it's not cheap and stuff like that too. So I want it to be available to more people. So that's really where it comes from. Yeah. And again, like, coming back to the whole body thing as well, like, I know the things that I've gone through, I probably could have avoided, like with my back and everything too. So that's where it comes down to it as well, that I'm like, it's important to me that other kids learn how to do things correctly, to ensure that they don't, you know, have the same issues as what I had. Yeah, so that's really the main point. And it's just such a good sport, and the things you learn, the people you meet, and yeah, the opportunities you can get, it's just so worth it. And I'm like, I need other people to experience that. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I saw you again on your Instagram post that you, like many of us in Melbourne, were struggling with lockdown. I think one of the things about coaching is that you're in constant contact with people, and that you're talking to people. It's a really social job. So tell me about, like, how it affected you, and now that things are opening up again, like, how are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, it's the change, and it's the expectations that I feel like the media puts out and everything. It's the, like you said, it's the not being able to see people. It's the constant, like, I guess, I can't even think of a word for it right now, but it was just so disheartening to constantly be cancelling work, like have months and months of work to book, so many gyms you're working with and athletes that you don't want to let down, but you're literally forced to cancel everything. That just really got to me, especially in this last one. where we were meant to have about 3 trips across 3 months, and they all got cancelled. And it's just, especially when it's stuff that I was meant to be going interstate for, which they're still training, but it's like, I just can't come. So it just got really hard, and just the constant changing of, and like not knowing what's going to change, which I know that was like it for everyone, but it just got to a point where it's sort of like you need to take time for yourself sometimes. And I feel like I really value that, like ensuring that you are in a good place and stuff like that before you continue on with anything, because otherwise I just felt like it was going to get to a point where I was going to fall out of love with my work and with what I do, because there was just so many things that were continually coming up that were disheartening for me that weren't in my control. So I just needed to like stop for a second and be like, okay, I'm going to forget about it for a few weeks, however long I need, just so I don't find myself resenting it in the end when it's out of my control. I just think that's really important, like listening to your mind, listening to your body and what you really need to make sure that you are the best version of yourself and you can do what you really want to do. It's just important.
And now I had a lot of work cancelled on me as well. And I sort of, I spent lots of time just not really having a lot to do. And then suddenly lockdown's finished and all of this work and all of these things have just like attacked me kind of thing. And it's great. Like I love it. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, I used to do a lot of stuff. Yeah. And so like, how are you kind of coping with all of everything coming back to full speed now?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that too. I know it's like, I feel like you're expected. It's like, oh, you're coming out of lockdown. You're expected to be so excited and so happy about it and everything. But I know for a lot of people, and I definitely felt it a little bit, I don't think it was that bad, but there was that bit of like overwhelm, being like, oh my God, we're coming out. Like, what is socializing? Like, how do I talk to people? Like, I know even last weekend we had a few events on with even just family that I was just like, I'm not going to be able to last all weekend seeing different people. But one thing I find really important is like meditating and journaling. Like every day, even just in the morning, getting up and putting on a 10-minute meditation, like that's all it takes. Just really focusing on clearing your mind and scheduling things even. I'm a real list person. So I find like for me, I write down a list of what I need to do for the day, but don't overdo it to the point that you're like stressed out and being like, oh, I can't get all of this stuff done. Like really just focus on maybe 4 or 5 things that you need to get done for that day and then leave it at that and wait till nothing's ever going to be that important that it's like you need to get it done right now. Obviously you learn to prioritize your stuff, and if something is more important than the other thing, do that first. But yeah, definitely meditating, journaling about how you feel and really just clearing your mind. And then writing lists and stuff like that of things you need to get done it makes it so much easier coming back into, I guess, normal life.
Yeah.
But I literally write like my coaching hours in, which I feel like I never used to even think about that. Like I just knew I went to work at this time.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I've got to have lunch at 2:00. I've got to be ready by 2:30 to go to work. Yeah. Like I'm literally write everything down so I don't get overwhelmed and like stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, you say that you go to like lots of gyms interstate and like, so you see lots of teams all of the time. Is there any sort of insights that you have about that? Like, do you think, is there like a common mistake that lots of gyms do? Is there something that you've seen that a few gyms have done really well that you'd love to give to other gyms? Like,
that's a hard one. I feel like I know everywhere I go, there's always something new I learn. Like whether it's a different name for something or a different idea for something, it's always just so amazing how many different things you can learn. For me, I guess when I go places as well, I'm not really watching like what they do. Like I sort of just go in there and work with their team. I think one thing that you sort of see overall is sometimes, I don't know how to say it, but like taking it too easy sort of thing. Like, not trying to say like people have to train harder and stuff, like people train really, really hard, but never being okay with like what you're not happy with, if that makes sense. Like always have bigger goals. Like sometimes I feel like even just individual athletes or something, they might not set their goals high enough, like doubt almost, I guess, that they can't be better. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things here in Australia, is that people don't think they can be as good as, say, the American teams, because they definitely can. And all the gyms I've been to, they have so much potential and they're so good. They just have to really believe it. And I think that's one thing across the whole board that you see sometimes disappears, that belief in that they can do it.
Yeah. And do you think that's just because we don't, like, people don't see people succeed as much over here because there's less teams, and maybe like in some states they might be the only team in their division, and they're just not seeing that people progress really quickly?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel like definitely here we don't have as much competition, which is one thing that I wish would probably change. I sort of wish there wasn't as many divisions as there is now, because I feel like a lot of the time, I know majority of my competitive time in Australia, I was very rarely competing with more than 2 or 3 teams. Like over time you get kind of bored. Like, yeah, after you've done it for years on end, you're sort of like, okay, I want something new now. Like, I want to compete against other people. I want to meet new teams and be challenged. So I think it would be awesome to see more competition, and whether, even if that meant getting rid of some of the divisions, and really like just getting people back together, I think that would improve us so much more, because people would actually have something to work for, work harder. But yeah, like, yeah, I guess that's one of the main things.
Yeah, definitely. When I was on Legacy, we only ever had competition at nationals, and for the rest of the year we were only ever competing by ourselves. And like, and although it was like, okay, let's do our best to hit 0, and that would be our greatest sort of what we could aim for, but then it was like, even if we hit 0, we didn't really know where we stood as far as our level went, because we had no competition.
Yeah, you only had one competition the whole year where you actually got an indication of how you go against other teams.
Yeah.
And that was like the same, because before I was on Callies, I was on Golden Girls. So that was the same. I remember in Golden Girls, we were the only senior level 5 in Vic. So same deal, like we didn't compete against anyone until nationals. And then getting to Callies, it was like the whole year we would compete against maybe 1 or 2 other teams, and then nationals a couple more. But it's like you only really get nationals to see, and like that's not enough. Like those teams in America, I know with Psy, every competition we went to, we had new teams we were versing, or we had 10 teams in our division. Like, it still doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. Like, it's a lot more than 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So we were always constantly like, you couldn't get complacent because you didn't know what was coming. So it's like, if you got complacent, you weren't going to do well at all. But here there probably is that bit more of a sense that some teams probably can get complacent because they don't have that thing to strive for. They don't have that even uncertainty of like not knowing what other teams are up to or how they're going to be, or just having other teams to compete against. Yeah.
And Kelly Girls recently competed at the Virtual Worlds, yeah?
Yeah.
Were you tempted to be part of the team just to train?
Honestly, no.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Honestly, not. Like, they are incredible. Like, you watch their routine, and honestly, I was before I saw their routine, I was like, oh, it's going to be tough to beat, you know, Great Whites again, because they've just been, you know, that one that's been up there the whole time. But as soon as I watched Callie's, I was like, how can they get better? Like, how can they keep getting better every year? I don't know how, but they're just incredible. And I don't think I could do what they do anymore.
Yeah, sure.
My body does not hold up. So yeah, I'm so grateful for the time that I had with them and for the experiences I got to, you know, go through with them, go to Worlds, win grand champions at nationals and stuff like that. I'm so grateful for that. I don't feel like I need to go back to do more or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was so incredible to see that their hard work's like paying off. And some of the girls,
they won, yeah, they got gold, didn't they? Yeah,
they did. I mean, some of the girls that were on that team I've cheered with since 2012.
Yeah,
and they're still doing it. So just to see them be able to do that and even just see their improvement was awesome. It was so good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you do climbing before. My husband's actually a rock climber. Yeah, I know. So I'm interested to know. I've tried rock climbing and I am not good at it, and I put most of it down to the fact that I'm inflexible and very short.
Yeah. The height doesn't help. Being not help.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But do you think being a cheerleader makes you a really good all-round athlete, and that it is something that you can apply to other sports?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the same goes for sort of gymnastics as well, and then somewhat with dancing too. I honestly just think having that coordination is a game changer. Mm-hmm. And I feel like especially as a coach, you can see the kids that have had that training since they were young, just dependent on their coordination. And yeah, that just means that across pretty much all sports, you're going to have somewhat of an idea of how to move your body and how to work your body. So I definitely think cheerleading and gymnastics and dancing, say like ballet and stuff like that when you're little, really helps with that body control and coordination that you need across all sports. I wouldn't say I'm that great at rock climbing either, though. It was just fun.
Yeah, right.
I wasn't any good.
And so tell me, what do you think your greatest asset was as an athlete, and what your greatest asset is as a coach?
Ooh. As an athlete, I felt like my mindset was really good. Mm-hmm. Because obviously, you know how much of mindset, though, in saying that, though, with tumbling, no, my mindset wasn't good. I was always the one that would get mental blocks with tumbling and stuff like that. But when it came to a routine, and especially with stunting, I feel like my mindset was always in that place of my stunt does not come down. Mm-hmm. My stunt stays in the air, and if it is coming down, I will fight for everything to keep it up there, or, you know, prevent it from having a big fall or something like that. So I must say that's probably my biggest asset, because I feel like there was obviously in training, we definitely had a few big falls here and there, but when I got to competitions, there was very minimal times where my stunts would fall. Definitely did happen at some places. We're not perfect, but I think that was a really big help, and something that I try and really instill into my athletes these days as well, is that mindset is everything. Because I was definitely not the best athlete either. Like, I was not the strongest or the fittest or the best skill wise or anything, but I think it was my mindset that was the game changer. As a coach, I think my attention to detail, whether that's individually or as a team. So like individually, my attention to making sure that every little bit is perfect. Not necessarily perfect, we can't be perfect, but good enough to the point that the athlete is going to be safe and avoid as many injuries as possible. I think that's probably one of my strongest points. But then also just my communication and ability to connect with the kids. I love that. And I love creating that bond with them so that they feel comfortable. And even like when you have to walk into a room of a team that's never met you before. Like, I feel like that's really important to be able to go in there and make that team feel comfortable around you, and feel confident enough to like speak up and ask questions and work with me rather than just like listen to me and be scared.
Yeah. And how do you do that? How do you make that trust sort of so instantly?
Just break the ice and make a joke with them. Like straight away, like don't be, I know there's a few coaches that I've worked with in my time, like especially in America, you know the ones where you're like, you know that you have to stand up straight, have your hair done up tight, lipstick on, eyelashes on, like, you know, the ones where you have to be there. And I always didn't want to be that one because it would always put so much pressure on you and make you feel like scared. So I always find it really important to just go in there, have a chat to them, like say straight out to them, ask questions like, I'm here to help you, I'm here to work with you, like I don't want you to feel like you can't talk to me, and really just put that out there and put out your expectations of what you expect from the training, what you expect from them back to you, and what I'm going to give to them. But then, yeah, also just make a joke with them and have fun. That always helps a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
So please promote your Odyssey Sports. How do people find you? How do people book you?
Yeah, so our Instagram is Odyssey Sports _ and then our website is just odysseysports.com.au, and that's where sort of all of our services are. And then people can just email me at Tessa at odysseysports.com.au to also discuss anything, because obviously cheerleading is complex and got a lot of stuff going on with it. So if there's anything specific service-wise or anything, people can always just email me or message us on Instagram and just be like, hey, we're after this. Is there anything you can help with? But yeah, that's where to find us. And we're going to be, getting back on track with it all more from now on, getting ready for next year, exciting stuff coming for next year and stuff like that. So that's where to find us.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And if you had to give one piece of advice to up and coming cheerleaders, what would it be?
I know it's so cliche, but just don't give up. Follow your dreams. Like, honestly, when it gets to the point that you feel like you want to give up, stick with it for a bit longer if it is really something that you've strived for. And really don't settle for anything less than your wildest dreams. Like, don't. That's so important to me. Like, keep working until, because it will happen. If you put in the work for it, it might not happen as quick as you think it will happen, but it will happen. So put in the work for it and don't settle for anything less. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And I think part of that is also not being too hard on ourselves, isn't it? Like, I think so often we think that we're worse than we actually are. And then, and it was a really great bit of advice that I heard recently was, how would you say it to your friend? And if you would, if someone that you cared about, if you would never say what you're saying to yourself to them, then you shouldn't be saying it to yourself.
Yeah, I heard that one recently too.
Yeah.
So funny. I love that.
Yeah.
But I just think like you have to believe in yourself for it to happen. So really, like, you're your own best friend. No one's going to get you there but yourself. So, you have people along the way to help you. You have your coaches, your parents, your family, your friends, whatever, they're there to help you. But the only person that can decide that you're going to do it is you. So go for it and don't give up until it happens if that's what you really want.
Yeah. And did I see on Instagram that you had a life announcement recently?
Yes. So that's another exciting thing for next year. I'm having a little gorgeous little baby in April.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And good luck growing a new life form inside of you.
Oh, it's difficult. I never knew how difficult it would be. It's exhausting and you feel like you're doing nothing. But anyways.
And so how far along are you?
15 weeks tomorrow.
Oh, right. Cool. So
we'll find out if it's a little boy or girl soon as well. So that's exciting.
Cute. Yeah. And are you sort of trying to keep fit while you're pregnant, or are you sort of just letting,
as much as I can?
Yeah.
I feel like out of out of like training for cheerleading, for me, it's always been a massive focus on my eating and what I eat and how I nourish my body that way. I've found that's always really, really worked for me. So obviously keeping on that, and then, working out as much as I can. But yeah, like I said, I've had a few issues with my back the last couple of weeks. So slowly doing it, but yeah, always keeping up with the Pilates and stuff like that. That always helps so much. So yeah, definitely keeping as fit as I can.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of Pilates. I think it's one of the best things ever.
Brilliant. For any children out there, they have to do Pilates.
Yeah, I agree.
Earlier.
I feel like it's one of the only things that kept my body working.
Yeah, definitely. It's so good.
Awesome. Well, we're at the end of our interview. Thank you so much for taking the time, and it was awesome talking to you, and you're very inspirational and lovely. So I hope people will book you next year and you'll be super busy.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Thank you for having me. That was fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries. Bye.